Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the first EY 2025 office hours for this cycle. My name is Suleiman. I am the TMDSAS Support Coordinator. Yeah, I just want to welcome you guys all to this series that we host every week. And it's just a space for you guys to come and ask your questions, get your questions answered live. So I know that today is the first day of submission for the cycle, which means that you can now start submitting your application. Once it gets submitted, it'll then be processed by our team. It'll take anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks. But right now, since everyone's trying to submit their application, everyone's trying to submit early. I would say that you should go ahead and just anticipate that it'll take about the 4 weeks to get out to the schools. And so once those are transmitted to the schools, that's what we call it, whenever your application gets sent out. Then at that point, the schools will have your application, be able to send you information about secondaries, any other information that would be relevant to you down the line, interview invites, etc. So, yeah, just a good rule of thumb is if your application has been transmitted to the schools, then at that point you would want to make sure that you keep in touch with both TMDSCS and your schools just to make sure you don't miss anything. And so I see that you guys already entered a couple of questions into the chat, so feel free to do so. And so with the TMDSCS office hours, you enter in your question into the chat, and we'll answer those as we go. So today, I don't have a specific topic that I wanted to cover with you guys. I just wanted to make sure that I offer the space for you guys to ask any questions that you have. Normally, we do try to bring in some topics depending on the trends that we see in questions that come our way each week. So, as we start noticing trends, we definitely create resources or topics to cover during this time so that way we can inform you guys and keep you up to date with information that is relevant to y'all. So also, if you have any ideas as to what you would like to see during this time, during our office hours, which will be hosted every Wednesday at 1 p.m., if you have any ideas for what you would like to see, just also let us know. We're also open to hearing what you guys have to say. So without further ado, I will go ahead and look through this chat. The first one I see is from Cameron. So, hello, Cameron. My application got flagged as a non Texas resident, but I think I am. I went to high school in Houston, college in North Carolina. Now I'm a postbac researcher at the NIH. So, great question. So, with the TMDSAS application, you'll want to make sure that you fill out this is going to be the proof of residency section. Fill out the questionnaire. It'll ask you questions, and depending on how you answer those, it'll prompt you to additional questions after that. So I would say answer those as accurately as possible. And just be mindful that when at the end of the section, it'll give you a system determination. And it looks like in this case, it might have given you that non Texas resident determination. But just be mindful that this is the first initial, it's just based on how you answered your questions, and it's not the ultimate say. Remember that whenever you submit your application, our team will review not only your coursework, but also your residency section to make sure it's accurate. If needed, they'll ask you for additional documentation if it's needed to either confirm what the system has indicated or change it. So don't be alarmed if you guys see non-Texas resident in your proof of residency section, because our team still has to take a look at it. So right now it was just that was the initial determination based on what the system has generated based on your question or your answers. However, a human still needs to take a look at that to confirm that or change it. So just be mindful of that. Please don't stress out just yet. And at any point, if you have any questions about the documents that will be asked of you, then you can let us know in your internal messaging system. Okay, I see. Yeah. So, and also in the residency section, there is a box at the bottom of the page. If you have anything else that you would like our team to know whenever they're reviewing your application, including the residency section, you can list that in the description box to give more context about your situation. And every situation is different. It's reviewed by people, so that way we can confirm what the system has generated. But please don't be alarmed just yet. Don't be stressed out. Like it can work out. All right, so the next question I see here is by Usman. So when I was in high school, I took dual credit classes and got my associate's degree in pharmacy tech. So when I'm inputting my courses on TMDSAS, should I put every single class, including all the pharmacy courses? Yes, that's correct. So with dual degree, I just wanted to point out since there's a lot of, sorry, I'm fixing my chair. I just want to point out that whenever you take dual credit courses, that you take a look at the courses based on the transcript in the community college that gave you the credit for it, not your main institution. Just wanted to throw that out there because I know a lot of times applicants see those courses as transfer onto their main institution and enter those courses as it's listed there. However, that'll be inaccurate because it's not your main institution was not the ones to give you that dual credit. It was the community college that allowed you to take those dual credit courses. So just wanted to put that out there really quick. So going back to your question, so you took dual credit classes, you got your associate's degree in pharmacy. So yes, you'll have to, in this case, you'll have to go to your community college transcript and enter in all the courses that you took to obtain your associate's degree. And it'll be based on what's on that transcript and as a separate college attended in your college's attended section. And let me know if I answered your question or if you still have any follow-up, just let me know. And we'll be here as long as needed, up to an hour. So if you have any further questions, you can keep dropping those into the chat. Okay, question from Teddy. This may be a better question for schools, but are science teachers strongly recommended slash required for letters of evaluation, or would too strong non-science be acceptable slash potentially viewed the same? Great question. We get this question every year. So from what the schools have said, they recommend having at least one of your evaluators be a professor in the sciences because then that professor in the sciences would be able to give them a better idea of how you might be able to perform in medical school. So it's recommended that at least one is a science professor. However, that is not the requirement. The reason for that is to also take into consideration those applicants who are non-traditional and may not have any more access to their old science professors. So, it, with any of your evaluators, you want to make sure that you select evaluators that are going to speak very highly of you. If you have any questions as to what who should be your evaluator, how should they write your letters of evaluation, we do have a page here that might be helpful for you, but also your evaluators when it comes time for them to submit their letters of evaluation. So I'm going to go ahead and link that page to the chat. Okay, so this link that I'm about to post is specifically I know it's out of order, but this one specifically, whenever you have selected your evaluators, and you're not sure, or they're not sure what to include in your letter or in your new letter of evaluation form, um, they can take a look at that to get some ideas as to the requirements and what to include in that evaluation for you. Now, if you're still wondering who should be your evaluators, we do have a resource in the application guide that might be able to kind of help you out, kind of solidify um, your evaluators and who you're going to ask and who are you going to choose. So I'm going to drop that into the chat as well. But to sum up what I mentioned and your question, it's going to be up to you who you want as your evaluators. Remember, you want to pick evaluators that are going to speak very highly of you, that know you well enough to write that strong letter of evaluation. And the schools don't require that you have a science professor, but it is highly recommended because a science professor would give them insight as to how you would perform in medical school. Okay. This one, we have a question from Soraya. One of my activities qualifies for the following entries: employment, healthcare, leadership, most meaningful planned activities. I have one or two other activities that triple qualify also. Is this right? Okay. So let me go to the activity section of the application guide, and I'll link that below. I highly recommend that y'all take a look at the application guide whenever filling out your application side by side, so that way any insight and information, tips, tricks that y'all need, y'all have them right there at y'all's disposal. For this particular question, this is asking about multiple categories. So as y'all know, um, each activity must be entered under one category. It is not recommended that y'all place those into different categories with the following exceptions though. So I will take a look at those with you so we can read those out loud and are aware of which ones are the exception to that rule. Okay. So yeah, every activity should only be listed in one section of the personal biography section of the application. The only exceptions are healthcare and employment. So an activity may be listed in both categories if the experience was a paid position and fits under both healthcare and employment. And also, the other exception is leadership. Any activity that results in a leadership role may be entered in both categories. So, essentially, to answer your question, yes, you could potentially have an activity that falls under those exceptions. So, it was like a healthcare activity, but you were also paid at that place. You were an employee. And let's say that you also obtain like a leadership position, or you want to highlight a leadership skill or initiative that you participated in that would also qualify under that section. So essentially, yes, you could have an activity that would, um, check the boxes for each of those three categories. And then on top of that, you are currently doing that right now and plan to do that after the application deadline happens, which is November 1st. So you would enter it under, if you believe that this activity will fall under all three of those categories, then you can place it in each of those. Be mindful that your description should be different and tailored to that specific category. So if you're going to place it under healthcare, make sure that you only talk about the healthcare aspect. And if the employment, if you want to talk about what you did, that is only under the employment and not under your leadership, just to make sure that that description is tailored to the category that you're placing it in. And then whenever, if this is an activity that will be ongoing, continuing after November 1st, then you will also need to put each of these into the planned activities as well. For your description, you can just use the same ones that you've had, or you can tailor it to like what you expect to be learning in the future, what you think you might be doing later in the future in those roles. And for additional guidance on what to enter into the descriptions, we also have the videos on that activities page in the application guide. The first one at the very top is entering your activities with confidence. So that's guidance given to you all by our TMDSAS director, and the one that we hosted with Dr. Calloway from Long School of Medicine. So if y'all watched our admissions corner session yesterday, admissions dean's corner session yesterday, we had Dr. Calloway from the Long School of Medicine. She also gave us some insights as to what to enter for the descriptions in your activities, what activities to include, how to place them into the categories, and just additional guidance that I am not that knowledgeable in, because I'm not the dean. I'm not the dean of admissions. But she gives a lot of great examples in that video. So again, highly recommend that you check that out if you're curious just to see what to do and what to enter for your descriptions. Okay, so question from Isaiah. I have two questions. I have inputted dental CE credits I earned into my dental experience section. Would this be the right place? Where should I place or put certifications such as BLS? So, to my understanding, CE, it sounds like those are continuing education credits that you earned into your dental experience section. And to my knowledge, CEUs or continuing education units, those don't necessarily, those would not necessarily be entered under the coursework section since anything in the coursework section has to come from the college courses that were given to you for credit that are listed on a transcript. So it sounds like based on the CEUs, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you took these are CEUs. You can list this under the dental experience in your biography section. So, yes, you are correct. And your certifications, so those, it sounds like those would be non-academic, since the way you can think of this is academic recognition would be like you're making dean's list or president's list or any other um, award that you received while in your undergrad. And anything after that or anything outside of school, like your main institution, you can put under the non-academic recognition. So you can certainly put that certification there. Okay, I do not remember my exact graduating class or my exact rank. I called my high school and they do not have the information. Can I make my best guess? Yes. So if you're unable to get your rank from your high school transcript or by calling your high school, you could also try your main institution registrar's office. They might still have that information on file for you, and also such as your ACT or SAT scores if you took that. If you're unable to get that information, you can enter in your best guess. And if at any point you obtain that information, you're able to find it, and you want to make an update to that, you can always send us a message in your portal and let us know that that information needs to be updated. But yeah, definitely making your best guesstimated guess on that part because it's information that's a little bit older. That should be fine, and it will not be um, anything that might hinder your application. Okay, I have half a credit course, and that is graded on a pass-fail basis for all students. I am concerned that I am concerned that without indicating this, it might appear as if I was struggling and had to convert to pass-fail grade. Um, so I wouldn't be too concerned about that. If it's half a credit course, it sounds like you would enter it into your coursework section as point 0.5 and pass-fail. That should be fine, depending what the course is, or maybe if it's like orientation or an intro class, or one of those classes that is like a tutoring or like in addition to one of your main science courses. I think that should be fine. Um, and remember that ultimately, it's not the schools are not going to look at this one thing and say like, "Oh man, Cameron was really struggling." They're gonna look at your overall GPA for that upward trend, which is more indicative of how you performed in school rather than this just one specific course. And also being half a credit, I don't think that would be a big deal. And then just remember that pass-fail grades were a little bit more common nowadays since the pandemic. A lot of times, pass-fail grades or because of the pandemic, a lot of schools went towards pass-fail grades for their courses. So, um, yeah, don't let that scare you because I don't think that would be a major concern. I'm a Texas high school graduate. I live in Texas, but going to an out-of-state school, should I answer yes to the question, did you live in Texas for 36 months prior to high school graduation? If that is the case, if you did live in Texas 36 months prior to your high school graduation, then yes, you can answer yes to that question. Um, and then you can, in the description box, you can list that you are right now. Um, only out of state for education purposes. Typically, that shouldn't be necessarily like a bad thing if you're out of the state for education purposes. So, but if you were in high school 36 months prior to your high school graduation, then indicate that it as yes. I know there is an option to click if you cannot find your SAT, ACT scores. I have tried getting them without luck. Will schools look unfavorably at this if I click? I can't find it. Not at all. So, like I mentioned previously, I mean, this information is a little bit older, and so it's perfectly understandable if you're unable to obtain it. So, the reason that that checkbox was listed there or placed there for the application is to let the schools know why you've tried looking at all the places, but you were unable to obtain that information, and that's okay. And they understand that it's totally fine. But we saw that as a better option for applicants to check versus trying to like guess that information. Um, which does cause anxiety of like, oh my gosh, am I lying on my application? But this kind of takes out that guesswork and it's just super transparent to the schools and they understand that they will not see that as unfavorably or anything like that. Okay. What are the criteria for bilingualism? Is there any way to indicate intermediate Spanish ability if we are in bilingual? I believe there is. I don't have the application in front of me. I'm still working on my dummy application because every year I also fill out my application. It does not get submitted though. But I haven't looked at my application just yet, or gotten to that section. But I believe that should be under the demographics section. But let me just refer to the application guide. Yeah, so this is going to be under the socioeconomic information of the personal information. So if you go to the personal information, socioeconomic information section of your application, on there, it'll ask you for your socioeconomic background, household information from birth to age 18, and then it'll ask you for language fluency. And there will be options on there. So you can rank your proficiency for the different languages that you speak. You will indicate whether you are a beginner, intermediate, or expert or native in that language. And this is important. It's important to know for you all that this is self reported based on your own evaluation of your language skills, and this is the proficiency levels that are listed in the application. So I'll go ahead and highlight them and place them in the chat for you to see for reference. Okay, let's see how much I can copy and paste. Okay, and I believe this should be under the demographics section. So take a look at that. Okay, I apologize because the B in beginner was cut off, but that does give you the criteria of beginner, intermediate, and expert. So just take a look at that. Again, it's self-reported. You're not going to be penalized if this is incorrect. Um, and yeah, just it's based on what you feel comfortable knowing your proficiency in another language. And then just be honest too. And the schools won't get mad at you if you're a beginner. This is based on your own self-reporting. Okay. I took a class at a community college and transferred it to my main college. The course abbreviation shows differently on each transcript from the two schools. Which one do I use? Yes. So this is a instance in where you're going to only refer to your community college transcript because the community college was the one that gave you the credit for the courses that you took at the community college. So only refer to the community college transcript based on what's listed on there. Use that. So if they're the ones that have a abbreviation, um, use that abbreviation instead of your main institution because if you get accepted and at that point, TMDSAS asks for your transcripts. Then we will be referring to the transcripts to the schools that you attended and the courses that you took at each of those. And so you just want to make sure that those are listed accurately based on the transcript from the school that gave you the credit. But those are my favorite questions because I can't stress that enough. Like you want to make sure that you do, even though you got courses that were transferred from a community college onto your main institution and it's listed on that transcript, you do not want to use that. There's oftentimes when in the spring, once our team is what we call validate your application, that means that our team will review the transcripts that you send if you were accepted by a school. They will review those transcripts with what you have placed. And often there's also instances where you might find deficiencies. Again, not to be not anything too scary, which with deficiencies, but um, it's not. It'll cause unnecessary worry if you, yeah, just follow what's on the community college transcript, so you don't have to worry about anything coming on later in the future, any discrepancies or any deficiencies, because you entered it based on what your main institution has. So let's avoid all of that. I am retaking my DAT in early July and my application is complete. Should I submit my application before I retake my DAT or after I retake my DAT? This is a great question. I would recommend that, well, first of all, I did want to point out that with TMDSAS, our application service, unlike others, you do not have to have your DAT scores sent in. You don't have to have your letters sent in. And you also don't need transcripts. Please don't send any transcripts at this moment, y'all. We don't need any of that in order for you to be able to submit your primary application. The reason for that is we want to make sure that you don't have other things that are stopping you from submitting your primary application and submitting it as soon as possible whenever you are ready and comfortable with submitting with what you have. With the DAT, if you are planning on retaking the DAT in the future, so in your DAT page, you do have to list the test dates in which you took the DAT and which ones you're expecting to retake in the future. In that section, it'll ask for planned DAT test dates, and you will enter your expected test date. So that way, whenever the schools get your application, they know to expect another DAT score. Now, is it better for you to send what you have, or is it better to wait to release your scores so that way it's all put together and the schools see, because some schools will review what you have, some schools will review your application once the DAT is in. It varies from school to school, so we highly recommend that you check with the schools that you're interested in applying to see what their protocol is on application review. If that DAT score has to be in before they review it, or do they review what you have already? Um, so to kind of answer your question, I hope I kind of gave you some additional like insight, but with this, just know that with your specific question, you can go ahead and submit your application before you retake your DAT. Just make sure that you indicate that future test date for that DAT. That's the most important part to take away from that. Okay, experiment, experiment. Out of curiosity, when will Team DSAS begin looking at applications that have already been submitted? Is it already ongoing? So today is the first day of submission. So as of today, our team is processing each and every application that has come our way since 8 a.m. Depending on how many applications get sent in each day will depend on how fast our team can go. So some days we might be getting 1,000 applications a day. Other days we might get less than that, more than that. It just depends. And it's definitely going to take closer to that 4 week period because everyone's trying to submit right now. With June being the highest traffic of applications coming in, the highest volume of applications that our team has to process, and it's going to take some time. So just be patient. I did want to point out that our application, or sorry, our website actually gives you the processing dates for which our team is processing applications for a certain day. So if you go to www.tmdsas.com, listed in the chat, on our home screen, on our homepage, when you go to the right-hand side, there's a blue square and it says TMDSAS is currently processing. It has listed out for you the letters of evaluation, depending on whether it was a direct upload or via Interfolio. Remember that those are two different processing times, Interfolio taking the longest. But our team won't display on there what date they are currently reviewing letters submitted on a specific date. Same thing for applications. Right now it says submitted because it is the first day of submission, so we don't have any um, other dates besides today that our team is. It'll say on their applications that are currently being processed are those that were submitted on the 15th. So right now that information is just going to continue to say the 15th because that's what our team will be processing at this time. And they process applications that have come in day by day. So if you later on down the road, let's say that you decide to submit your application May 28th, and you go to our homepage and it says our team is processing applications submitted on the 20th, that kind of gives you an idea of where we're at, how much longer to anticipate until our team gets to your submission date. But again, just be mindful that although we do say it can take anywhere to 2 to 4 weeks, in this particular part early in the cycle, it's gonna be closer to that 4 week. So don't be alarmed if it's taking longer than 2 weeks. That is very, very normal because everyone's trying to submit everything right now. Okay. So question from Anastasia. Under employment, it says held job, and you can only select one from freshman, sophomore, etc. So should I enter in the same job several times for sophomore, junior, and put the same description? Okay, so for this one, it you honestly can place it in multiple ways, just whichever one makes the most sense to you. If you had an employment that you held, let's say like the summers from freshman year to senior year, you can encompass that whole time frame and then just list like in the description like something about like it being like a summer job. If you only held that for like your freshman year or your junior year, then that would be the best way to place it. Again, the best advice that can be given to you for like what to put for the descriptions, how either to do the whole time frame that you had this job or the individual. Um, Best guidance for that is going to be uh, in the application guide under the activity section. So again, take a look at that information that is on that page. Take a look at the videos because our director and the dean do give examples of this particular scenario. And they give scenarios as to, if you had your employment during that whole time, shorter amount of time, only summers, only winters, etc. They give you ideas as to how to place it into your application. So definitely take a look at that because they will definitely be better at giving you that kind of guidance. Whereas us at TMDSA Support, we would be able to help you on the technical aspects of entering that into your application. I'm a Texas high school. Okay. Do I thought I had already answered this. Do I answer yes to the question by November 1st of this year, will you have lived in Texas continuously for the last 12 months? So for that question, you'll want to answer it as accurately as possible. Remember that you can always use the description box to list what your current situation is. If I'm not mistaken, based on the question you asked earlier, I believe you're out of state for educational purposes, which is totally fine. You can list that in the description box. And remember that even if your determination at the end of that page says non Texas resident, don't be alarmed. That is the initial computer determination. It still has to be reviewed by our team to make sure that is accurate. And so, again, just answer that page as accurately as possible. Okay, this is a question for dental. As a chemist, I have thousands of hours I like to include in the manual dexterity section. However, these would also apply under employment. Can I include this experience in both sections? So let's again take a look at the application guide because that is going to be our driving North Star that's going to give us the information that we need, and then we can go from there. So for activities, again, you should only place activities listed in one section, so listed once, and the only exceptions are healthcare and employment, And then, yes, for dental applicants, underneath that, if you see that on your activities page in the application guide, it says that dental applicants may also list an activity in both dental experience and employment for activities. And this would also, I would say that it can also be applicable to that manual dexterity since that was also added in later cycles. And if you did have something that would fall under that manual dexterity but also employment, you can list it under both. Just again, be mindful that you use different descriptions for each of those categories that you place that same activity in. So it doesn't look like you're just copying and pasting. Another resource I wanted to give you guys, since we have our YouTube channel here, remember to subscribe if you haven't already. It is the best way to get notifications of upcoming videos that are going to be beneficial for you all. I highly recommend that y'all take a look at the panels that we hosted here with our medical, dental, podiatry, veterinary schools. This one, I'm going to go ahead and paste the dental panel just because right now we do have a couple of applicants that are applying to dental school. And the dental school panel does give you a lot of information as to what they want to see in that manual dexterity section. I recommend that you take a look at it. Anything with the deans and the schools, I hardly want you guys to take a look at that because that information is coming directly from the source, directly from the people that are going to be reviewing your application, what they want to see, what they don't want to see. I highly recommend that y'all take a look at that guidance. So that way you also are more confident in what you're going to be placing for your activities. And most of the panels, they mostly do talk about activities as it's applicable to you. So the dental school panel does talk about the manual dexterity. The veterinary school panel talks about the animal experience. So definitely check that out. I think it's very beneficial. Should I put no credit classes that were graded as satisfactory slash non in coursework? You must put all the courses that you ever taken in that are listed on your transcript on your application. So if you have a class that was no credit, that is a grade that you have, but there's no credit hours attached to it, you would place the credit hours that you would have obtained had you received credit. Same thing with courses that were graded as S for satisfactory, you have to list everything that appears on that transcript. So make sure you do that. Okay. Question from Sahar. I went to an international dental school for 2 years and have used World Education Service, WS, and got equivalency of 67.5 credits in the US. I have two relevant questions, so let me go find those. Some credits were accepted by my community college and some by my four-year university. How do I put all the coursework from three official transcripts? Well, that is a very great question. And so let me just take a look at your question B. My total transcript credits are 150 shown in the official transcript of my undergrad. Will I be evaluated as a master's level? Thank you. Great question. Right now, at the top of my head, I feel like I need a visual to be able to kind of help you out with that question. It sounds like there's a lot of moving parts in there, and there's a lot and it just depends on the situation for a foreign institution coursework. Just depending on your situation, there's different directions that can go in based on your situation. So in this case, I would recommend that you send an email to info at tmdsas.com. Send us what you have. Have that question in there so that way our team can take a look at the documents that you have, your situation to be able to give you better guidance as to what to do in your scenario. That's something that we're not able to do in the messaging feature because it doesn't let you like upload images from what I last checked. And just to make sure we avoid any kind of issues or technical issues with that, let's just go ahead and have you send an email to info@tmdsas.com. That way we can take a look at the whole picture and be able to give you better guidance. Because right now at the top of my head, I'm thinking, well, if it's this, I can go that. If it's this, I can go there. It just, yeah. And I'm a visual learner, so it's easier for me to look at things visually to be able to kind of like problem solve with those. Okay. So moving on from Isaiah, thank you for your help. No problem. Same thing from Cameron. Okay. Oh, the seminar. Yeah, definitely. Don't worry about that. Yeah, that seminar, if it's point 0.5, has a pass, enter it as such in your application. They're not gonna, yeah, it's a seminar. You're fine. Okay. Great questions, you guys. I worked as an RDA. Should I include that I have done SCE and BLS certification, etc., or is that unnecessary to include since I'm guessing they know those things are required to be an RDA? Great question. It is up to you. I think someone else also had that CE and BLS certification, but basically, it sounds like if this is continuing education courses for CE, those will not be placed in your coursework section. Those would go under your activities. However, you want to place those in whichever category, using your best judgment, what you want to highlight about that will help you make that determination where it needs to go. Same thing with the certification. If you want to list that under non-academic recognition, you can certainly do that, but it'll be up to you. I had several M dashes in essay, and the system wouldn't allow them. Could I use a dash? Yeah, that's fine. If it doesn't allow you, I wonder if you were able to copy and paste your essay that does have um, the dash that you want correctly. Um, if you had that in your Word doc, if copying and pasting from your Word doc was helping. If not, text editor is also a good way to kind of like override those special characters um, error message. If you have tried that and it's not working, I don't think a dash will be bad. Um, Definitely, if you want to take a look at the advice that Dr. Kellaway gave in yesterday's session in the admissions dean's corner about personal statement, because she did talk about how to write a personal statement and the other essays, you can also take a look at that if you'd like. But I don't think this would be anything that would hinder or affect your application in any negative way. Alrighty. Yeah. See a lot of thank you. Thank you for your help. Of course, no problem. I'm glad that I'm able to give y'all some guidance and be helpful for you all. I know that this journey is stressful, it's overwhelming, anxiety provoking, and so anything that we can do to help you all is what we're here for. Okay, let's see. Okay, this is a follow-up to the previous question. Should I send all 3 official transcripts and just to you, Sulema? Um, with believe yours is a situation with the WES evaluation, you can certainly send that because in any case, we would need that copy of those anyway. With your in this case, you don't necessarily okay. I'm thinking, so for your foreign school, if you have a transcript from that school, you can send that over. If you don't have the official copy, and unofficial also works. You can send that our way, send the evaluation. And if you don't want to send in the official college, community college transcript, you don't have to. Just whatever you have, such as like screenshot or a photo of it, just so you don't have to spend money on getting an official one and sent it our way. Since we don't need those just yet at this time, the only exception would be the if you have any foreign institution coursework, yes, we can go ahead and take that, and that can be unofficial. Um, but yeah, you can send the evaluation page that you have, your unofficial foreign institution transcript, and you can also send the like a screenshot or an image of the community college transcript, just so we can take a look at it. Um, you can address it to me. I'm the one that told you to send that over, and our team will be able to like forward it either to me or address it if they're right then and there. And our team is great. They're also very knowledgeable. They could also help you out. But yeah, either way works fine. Our team will definitely be getting it, and that way we can take a look at that and be able to help you out. Okay, so if we have a total number of volunteer hours for a specific org but completed the hours at varying rates per week, should we enter how many we typically did per week or strictly divide the total? Um, I would say depending on how you see it best fit. If you want to enter like an average amount of hours that you did per week, that works. But if you also wanted to divide it, ultimately The overall hours, as long as that is accurate, that should be fine. The schools know that sometimes dividing it by how many weeks sometimes comes out like a funky number. But you can certainly also, if it makes the most sense to place like this is on average how many hours I did per week, as long as that total is your total hours, then that should be fine. But you can also take a look at the advice from those videos that I mentioned, just to triple check any other advice that like the dean has given about those hours. And definitely the session with Dr. Kellaway was mainly just about activities, and it's called Busting Myths About Activities, so it's gonna give you everything you need to know about activities from the perspective of the admissions dean from one of the medical schools. And although it's from the medical school, it is also applicable to dental, podiatry, and veterinary applicants. So I'll actually go ahead and link it in the chat. I think it's a great session. I learned a lot because I did host a session, and Dr. Kellaway is a great resource. So I'll list this in the chat for y'all. I highly, 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 highly recommend taking a look at that because it's packed of useful information. Okay, if I volunteered and shadowed at the same time for my clinical activity, should I do separate activity entries or include them in the same one? It sounds like because you said shadowing, you could potentially break that up because in your healthcare experiences, that is one of the things that you can list in there, shadowing. Um, Definitely take a look at that. And oh, there's another video I want to show you all that we hosted as part of our workshops, and our director gave a lot of insight as well. He's also very knowledgeable in activities. So let me actually go ahead and put that in the chat as well, just to make sure y'all have all the resources y'all need to make the best judgment on what to put in your activities. Again, us at TMDSAS Support, it's a little bit difficult for us to give y'all that like advising where to place the activity, how to break it down, because ultimately you all are the expert in your activities and y'all know what y'all did. Y'all know like the importance of the activity. And if it's important to you, it's definitely important to the school. And if you want to say this is specifically shadowing and here's why, the schools will take your word for it. So that's why it's a little tricky for us to kind of give y'all like advice on the activities. However, the guidance that our director gives, the admissions deans from the various schools, um, I would say definitely listen to that. And I also want to emphasize that I know that the activities section seems like a stressful section, trying to make sure that you get it right. Are you placing it correctly? Is this hours making sense? But I also want to emphasize that it's not so much about the technicalities of how to enter them or like where to enter them, or like, for example, if you are wondering whether an activity should only be placed in one category or the other, that is ultimately up to you, and the schools are not gonna penalize you if they see an activity and they're like, "Why did they put this under extracurriculars?" Or like, "Why did they place this in your community when it should have been extracurriculars?" They're not gonna penalize you for that. They're not too concerned about that. Ultimately, what they're concerned about is to see activities that were helpful and meaningful to you to get onto this like on this journey of your pre-health profession. Like that's what they want to see. They're more worried about seeing the activities that you took part in, that you were passionate about, that you learned something from it, that it confirmed that you were on the right track into the career field that you're going into. um, that's what they want to see. They want to see the activities that were useful and helpful and meaningful to you. So don't stress out. I hope like you guys don't yeah, definitely don't stress out too much about it. Like it's going to be okay. And if you see that activity is important and you say this is employment and here's why, they'll take your word for it. Okay. See, I am curious, will the medical school see the explanations we write in the residency section, or do they only see the final TMDSAS determination of resident or non-resident? So these schools do have access to your whole application. They can see every page, every section, every answer that you selected. So to answer your question, technically, yes, they can see that explanation in that description box. However, ultimately, the most important thing out of that is residency distinction is the confirmation of whether you are a Texas resident or not. The reason for that is because in Texas we do have a state law that all medical, dental, podiatry, and veterinary schools have to admit 90% of the entering class as Texas residents, and only 10% of that the spots can go to non-Texas residents. So that's why that distinction is important, and that's why that's something that the schools have to abide by, and is the reason why that distinction comes into play, and ultimately what they're actually looking for. Now, can they look at your description? Yes, because they can look at everything on your application. It's all available to them once it's transmitted. Okay. I came in late, but can I submit an application with the MCAT scores? Uh, Correction, without the MCAT scores. I thought so. Yeah, you can go ahead and submit your primary application without your MCAT scores. Just make sure that you do list your test date that you have taken or will take in the future. That is very important for the schools to know that you have a pending MCAT score and that you didn't just not take it and not plan to take it. Definitely just make sure that you list that into your MCAT page and you're good to go to submit. Question from Juliana for the research section. If the project was presented with a poster and is going to be published, but under the PhD that I am working with, do I still add the description under any publications, etc.? So, from my understanding with the research, if you think an activity is research, you can list it under there, even if you're not the main person publishing it. But if you worked on it, you can definitely enter that into your description. And then I would also say for more guidance about the research description for your activities, take a look at those videos that I pasted into the chat. Those are going to be your better answers for what to put into that description and how to do so. That guidance will be better than what I can give you. Okay. And honors program is different from graduating with honors, right? Um, yes, I would say so. I think you're referring to the colleges attended section where you place the schools that you attended and whether or not you were in an honors program. Um, so yeah, you can, if you were in an honors program, you can select that. But if you just graduated with honors, like such as magna cum laude, like that would go under your activities in the academic recognition. Okay. Question from Lila. For the most meaningful activities, what are your thoughts on putting a clinical activity that I did for a shorter time but found more interesting than the one I have many hours in? Great question. Again, with the advice, Team DSA support can only give you so much. The best piece of advice I would say is take a look at those videos that were pasted into the chat when it comes to activities. It sounds like, and I'm taking this just based on what Dr. Calloway mentioned, and mentioned in yesterday's session with the essay portion. It sounds like if something was more meaningful to you, even if it was shorter than your longer hours one, it sounds like you can definitely place that under your meaningful activities and talk about that because that's gonna, if for your meaningful activities, you want to place the activities three from the ones that you already listed that were the most meaningful to you and expand on those. So if something was super meaningful to you, it's going to be super meaningful to the schools to know, even if that was something that you might have done for like 5 hours versus something that you did for like 100 hours. They're going to want to see quality over the quantity. And also, that's going to be better for you to talk about a meaningful activity that was super meaningful to you because you will have lots to say and you will have, it'll be a better short essay than one that, maybe you weren't so passionate about. Okay. So it looks like we're down to the last 5 minutes of this session, and we have one more question to go. So this is about residency. So for the residency section, it says, could your parents answer yes to any of these following questions? Mine is answered as no when I print it out, but on the portal there's no question. It sounds like this might be a situation where this question is not on that PDF of your application. If so, you can submit a technical issues report if it's not showing up um, for on your PDF for your record to keep. So let me go ahead and drop that into the chat. So the technical issues report, you can fill out the information that's on there, explaining, what you're experiencing, and then the and also, if at any point you guys see something like a processing error occurred and it's in red, that is definitely a technical issues report material. So just be on the lookout for that. It doesn't happen often, but if it does, it's something that can be submitted via the technical issues report. And if you submit it today, would I be able to submit today without worrying about it? I would say so. It's not in retrospect with everything else, it's not super important. So even if you move on with your application, like it should be fine. Perhaps maybe whenever you submit, that shows up on the PDF at that point. But if it's something that you're like, I want to make sure that I have this on my record and my PDF for my own record in the future, then yes, you can request to have that at least taken a look at so that way our team can be aware of this particular question that's not popping up on the PDF to take a look at it and see if this is any technical issues or if it's normal or whatever the insight might be that they'll give you. Um, but thank you guys so much for attending. Thank you for all the great questions. Remember that we are here every week. And if you missed us, no worries. You can always watch this at a later time. The recording will be available on our YouTube channel right after the session ends. So you can always come back to it. If you missed the first part of the session, you can always come back to it. If you forgot what I had said for one of the answers, you can always come back to watch it. Also, if you have a question that's after 5 or after 4 on the weekend, definitely send that in your internal messaging feature. It takes our team about 2 business days to get back to y'all. Remember that right now we are in the peak of the early application cycle. Everyone is asking their questions. Everyone is submitting their applications. So just be mindful that we do have quite a bit of people that our team is answering questions for, and our team does make sure that they answer questions thoroughly. So just be patient, but they will be getting to you. And we are definitely here to help. So thank you guys so much. I wish you all the best of luck. Remember to take a look at the after submitting section of the application guide before you submit. There are certain sections in the application that you will not be able to make changes to after you submit. So you definitely want to take a look at that. Some of those sections, as you can see in the link, will definitely be your essays and your activities. So once you submit, you will not be able to make any changes to that. Also take a look at your application for any typos, making sure you did paste your essays and you're not missing any other crucial things that are important for your application. You're not missing your parent information as well. That's a lengthy part as well that is pretty hard to add after submitting. So, thank you all so much for tuning in. I wish you all the best of luck, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye, everyone.